I am holding for a very very loud siren.
What is funny about this particular episode, though, I have been warned by the people we're staying at here that in the morning they have like wild cockatoos that are quite loud. So I might have to pause for cockatoos.
Nothing would make me happier, just in terms of your mental health, than the fact that you used to have to pause for sirens and you are now pausing for cockatoos in Australia.
It's an upgrade. Sup, nerds? It's basketball. Welcome to Horse, a basketball podcast about everything except for the wins and losses. My name is Mike Schubert, and I'm joined by my trusted co-host, the NBA to not going a few hours without some ridiculous drama over the past couple of weeks. It's Adam Amawala. Adam, how's it going?
It's going well. It's been a very dramatic time, and given how chaotic the present is, I feel it's only appropriate to ask you, how is the future? How's tomorrow? We're recording this. I'm in today. Mike is in tomorrow. This usually doesn't happen, but it's pretty exciting for us.
Yeah, so I'm in Sydney, Australia. It is currently 5:10 a.m. on Friday, November 4th, whereas you are recording in the afternoon on Thursday.
Wild.
And I can confirm that the world is still here, which is nice. Sun has not risen yet, so I cannot give that update, but maybe by the end of the episode, I could give you that update. But it's pretty good here in Sydney. If my audio sounds upside down, though, that is why, if anyone was listening and confused.
I'm still not sick of that joke, by the way.
I never will be. I'm going to make it for the entire time that I'm here. It's great. I wish I could have changed something where I came into the Zoom and my video was upside down, but alas,
Damn
I don't
it.
know that that's a feature.
That would have been great.
Oh, man. So we've got a lot of stuff to cover in Full Court Press, so I think we should get ready to do so in the Teal Memorial locker room, where Teal is avoiding all of the drama that the NBA has been incapable of avoiding recently.
As Teal should. I assume that's why you went to Australia, is to just get away from all the drama.
Yeah, I figured let's just clear out and escape this. And it's been a mess. But that's what we're here for. We're here to cover all the weird stories. That's what Horse is.
Since things are upside down, real quick, I don't want to give anything away, but does Kyrie Irving make sense in Australia? Since it's like backwards land?
No, see, the thing is, Australians are really nice and they don't like mean people, and Kyrie's been really mean. Legitimately, everyone here is so nice. It's ludicrous how nice people are. It's quite wonderful.
I love it. I'm jealous.
You know who everyone should be jealous of?
Probably our patrons for being a part of something really special, and specifically our two newest patrons.
Yes. So shout out to our new patron, Clackadol, and shout out to our newest producer level patron, Lilith Pan.
Indeed. And I even waited to send you the full list of patrons because the name that Lilith has chosen as their producer level name is pretty damn stellar. So let me go ahead and give that to you now.
Okay.
Here we go.
Something mean about the Knicks. Oh, no. Now, is this a Steph Curry for three thing where you're going to have to come up with a different one every single time? Or are we just going to say something mean about the Knicks at the end of the list each time?
Oh, that's a good question. I think it's funny to just say the actual words, something mean about the Knicks.
Yeah, I like that a lot. Well, in that case, shout out to Lilith, who we will now be addressing by their new name, but also shout out to our existing producer level patrons, Polly Burridge, who I did meet in person, a very nice person.
So cool.
We went to an Australian Football League women's match, and Australian football is wild in the best way. They have very cool rules. Every team has an official song. It's quite awesome. So shout out to Polly Burridge, Kendra Hadley, Salvatore Testa, who I also saw recently when I was in Oakland, California. Sal let me crash at his place. Very nice of Sal. Trust the process. Siobhan Ellsbury, He Sells Seashells, Don't Go Chasing Taco Falls. Bang, bang. Long-suffering Timberwolves fan, Roast Beef Debris, Cade the Conqueror, Basketball is Life 2, Michaela Loves Allison, Denver Steam Nuggets, Anna Borgelli, Weird Questions. Steph Curry is good at basketball, and not an insignificant part of that is his unparalleled ability to shoot threes.
Bang!
Lobster Biscuit, Hi Trish, Ginger Spurs Boy, who I also met in Dallas recently, also a very nice person, Nicole Arsenal, and something mean about the Knicks. Clearly, I'm having a good run of meeting our producer level patrons of late.
Clearly, you are quite the traveling man. You have seen so many of our patrons in person, and many of them are your actual friends, so I absolutely love to see it.
Yeah, I love to see it. And you know what else I love to see?
Us getting money from great sponsors.
Yes, it's always nice to have. Adam, how about you tell us about our sponsor this episode?
I certainly will, because it is now time for a word from our sponsor, BetterHelp. And look, we are living in a time where there are a lot of problems. It doesn't always feel like there are a lot of solutions. But sometimes the biggest thing that can help is having a different mindset. Now, it can be very tough to train your brain to stay in problem solving mode when you're faced with a challenge in life. But when you learn how to find your own solutions, there is no better feeling. And part of finding your own solutions means getting help when you need it. A therapist can help you become a better problem solver, making it easier to accomplish your goals, no matter how big or small. I say it every time. I will continue saying it. I'll probably say it even if BetterHelp doesn't sponsor us. Mike and I are big proponents of mental health and mental well-being. I am a proponent of therapy. I think therapy is incredibly beneficial. I think everybody should be in therapy. And there are many, many benefits that BetterHelp can help you with. If you're thinking of giving therapy a try, BetterHelp is a great option, as we have mentioned. It's convenient, accessible, affordable, and entirely online, which is great. You can get matched with a therapist after filling out a brief survey and switch therapists anytime if the therapist you have been matched with is not a particularly good fit for you. So, when you want to become a better problem solver, therapy can get you there. Visit betterhelp.com/horse today to get 10% off your first month. Once again, that's betterhelp.com/horse.
Yes, and now we can move on to NBQ&A. Adam, you said you had one queued up, so what do we got?
I do. Emphasis on the Q. We have a really great NBQ&A. This was an email we got from a listener of ours, Prasanth. Prasanth lives in Tasmania, so not far from you right now.
I will be visiting Tasmania in a couple of weeks.
Well, Prasanth, if you're listening, reach out to Mike or reach out to Horse, and perhaps you can have some sort of meetup as well. But this email, it's right up your alley. I think you're going to really enjoy it. This is what it said. I'm paraphrasing and shortening a bit, but, quote, I live in Tasmania and I am keen to start following an NBA team. Can you recommend one based on my following interests? Favorite film? Anything by Taika Waititi? I think I'm pronouncing that properly.
Yeah, he's a New Zealand filmmaker.
Yes, who's made Jojo Rabbit and many other things. And or Edgar Wright.
Okay.
Favorite album, Rumors by Fleetwood Mac. Great choice.
Okay.
Favorite sports, soccer and Aussie Rules football, which you just spoke about. And this was amazing because this was like a dating profile. What I am looking for in a team. Long walks on the beach. No, I want a team that is fun and just does not know how to hang on to a lead. Very weird thing to want. I want a team that blows leads constantly. But it says the kind that plays better when they are behind. I like a bit of drama. I want to be so on the edge that it makes Bono jealous. Amazing line. Great work. Maybe a lower half playoff entry team that could go all the way. Love me a franchise player, maybe one with distinctive features, because I do art and would love sketching team posters for fun with said player to get hyped for big games. All right, so first of all, shout out to Prasanth, amongst the best NBQ&A submissions we have received, which is why I'm reading it right now. So hello, thank you for listening, and let's break it down. So what is a team that meets those criteria? As far as the film and album stuff is concerned, we'll have to break that down a little bit, but as far as the more specific stuff, what is a team that you can think of right now that is fun, blows leads, plays better from behind, is kind of dramatic, is a lower half playoff entry team, and has a franchise player? It's a lot of criteria.
There is a lot going on, but I think the answer is the Portland Trailblazers.
Okay.
Because they've got the franchise player of Dame.
Right.
Obviously, he is famous for being good in late game situations, hence
Naturally.
his nickname of Dame Time, a la Game Time. So when the fourth quarter is winding down, he steps up. The Blazers are very fun in that they've got Damian Lillard, obviously, but then they have Anthony Simons, who just recently had a game where he scored 20-something points, maybe like 22 points just in one quarter. So they've got a lot of exciting players. They are certainly like lower playoff, at least in terms of anticipation for this year, but they have started off really well. When you think of like the edgier sort of music movie selections, I feel like Portland kind of fits that vibe.
Yeah, like indie sort of stuff, like not super. I mean, obviously Fleetwood Mac is pretty mainstream, but like if your favorite directors are Taika Waititi and Edgar Wright, you're not like, oh, I love, I love the Da Vinci Code movies. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's definitely, you like things with a little more edge and spice and flavor to it.
And Portland, the Portland Timbers, the MLS team, have a huge following.
Yes, they do.
So, and as far as a soccer team in America that has a big following, I feel like Portland could be a good fit. So, first of all, kudos to you for coming up with that answer so quickly. But Prasanth, if you're listening, I think the consensus here is that the Portland Trailblazers would be a great team for you. And perhaps because of the fact that you're in Tasmania, you can fly the other way around the world and get to Portland because it's on the West Coast here. I feel like it's all lining up perfectly. And if you do decide to draw a sketch of Dame Lillard, do make sure to tweet it at us and we'll be sure to retweet it for you.
Of course, of course, of course. Yeah, I think that's fun. If you disagree with Portland, reach back out and we can try to find another team. But I feel like that checks all those boxes.
Awesome. Great stuff. Keep those submissions coming. We will do our best to get to as many of them as we can. And inevitably, we will have a full NB Q&A episode once again where we catch up on a lot of the ones we haven't had time for. But we do appreciate you reaching out to us, even if you don't get a response immediately or we don't answer on the pod. Just know that we are seeing them, taking note of them, and we will do our best to get back to them when we can.
Yes. And now we can move on to Full Court Press. Get it like the news.
I sure do.
So there's lots of news. It's not all fun.
So much news. Too much news.
Legitimately too much news. We're going to go through it quickly and then we'll end on stuff that's a little less feel bad. Let's first and foremost get through all of the Nets stuff because there's so much going on with the Nets.
Man.
Oh, time out. Saying too much news could not have been more correct. Even though we recorded this past Thursday afternoon, even more news and developments and updates about all things Nets came out. So if you go to our Patreon, patreon.com/horsehoops, there will be a free audio overtime post where I will explain some of the updates just so that you know what's fully going on because some of the things we pointed out here are no longer relevant. So head on over to patreon.com/horsehoops if you want to be fully up to date on the Kyrie and Nets situation. And also you can check out the other fun stuff on the Patreon. Okay, let's get back to Adam and Mike in the past, who are mostly still correct, just not 100% correct. It's bad. It was already Grumpy Boy Town because you had Kevin Durant during the offseason request a trade. Even before that, you had Kyrie Irving try to do something with his contract where he had another team pick him up. Nobody wanted him.
Right.
He opts into his contract to stay with the Nets. He doesn't get the extension from the Nets, so it's just the 1 year. Kevin Durant requests a trade. Doesn't work out. Then he says, okay, I'll come back if you fire Steve Nash and Sean Marks, the GM. That doesn't happen. So he's back. Already drama going into the season. You've got the whole Ben Simmons of it all, which is very dramatic because he started the year not playing very well, but he hadn't played in like 2 years. So sure, that's going to happen. But now you have Kyrie Irving a couple of weeks ago at this point sharing a very anti-Semitic documentary on his social media platforms. It's bad. It's got fake quotes from Adolf Hitler and everything. And then he was asked about it and he gave a very non-answer, non-explanation where he contradicted himself all of the time, saying things like, I have a lot of influence in my community, and then literally a minute later saying that people make up the influence that he has. He's a walking contradiction. He's a walking YouTube comment section. And it's just terrible stuff that he's sharing. And then when he's just given absolute softballs of trying to denounce the awful beliefs that he is promoting, he just doesn't do it. And that's what happened recently because the Nets and Kyrie worked together where they released this press statement where, you know, they're saying the events of this week have sparked many emotions, like all this stuff where like not really an apology, but kind of. We'll put a link to the full thing. But basically, Kyrie and the Nets are each donating $500,000 towards organizations and causes that work to eradicate hate and intolerance in our communities. They're going to work with the Anti-Defamation League, which is a nonprofit that fights anti-Semitism, and they do great work. But then they have a quote from Kyrie where he doesn't ever say the words, I apologize, or the word sorry. So not an ideal apology. Shout out to Teal, who pointed out that Kyrie should study the ways of the 4-point apology, which are like the principles of what makes a good apology. And part of that is apologizing and not just saying, I take responsibility and I am aware of the negative impact of my post. And just, you know, things where it's like, he clearly doesn't want to actually apologize. So he's just coming short of it. And then even today, just starting a couple hours ago, or at least for me, it was all stuff coming in like this morning, but just post game of the Nets' most recent game, Kyrie was again, like just given absolute softball questions of, do you support anti-Semitic beliefs? And instead of saying no, he said things like, I cannot be anti-Semitic if I know where I come from, because part of his conspiracy theory belief is the whole Black Israelite conspiracy about how the people today who say they're Jewish aren't actually Jewish, and it's all a lie, and Black Americans are the real Israelites, and it is such a mess, and it's so bad, and it would just be so easy for him to apologize, and he's time and time again refusing to do so.
Right. It has the vibe of the whole, like, I'm sorry that you got upset.
Right. Sorry if I hurt your feelings.
Which is the classic non-apology. And you posted from the Horse Twitter account, which, by the way, quick side note, just on a lighter note, as we get into all of this, there is, we have to do a shout out. There's a new Twitter account. We already have the one that describes why horse hoops got banned, which is great. But we do have to shout out a new Twitter account, which you can follow at horse, all caps, TWT, like tweet, guesser, guessing which horse boy tweeted this tweet. We've already had a lot of fun with it, but all that to say that you tweeted from the horse account about the 6-minute Kyrie press conference and how it frankly wasn't worth watching. And of course, as happens on Twitter, someone was like, did you even watch it, or are you just saying that? It's like, no, we watched it. I know you watched it. I also watched it, and it was embarrassing. The fact that he is acting like he's being attacked, this kind of victim mentality of like, don't dehumanize me. It's like, no one's dehumanizing you by asking you a completely valid question.
Right.
And the classic deflection of like, well, what about you? That like whataboutism that people talk about, where a reporter asks him a question and he's like, well, I'm just sharing stuff on my platform. You share stuff on your platform. And the reporter was like, yeah, but I don't share anti-Semitic stuff. Like, that's not the same thing. But the fact that Kyrie isn't aware enough to acknowledge that he has an oversized impact on people when he is an NBA star with a huge following, it's complete bullshit to be like, I'm just a regular dude, just treat me like a regular dude. I'm sorry, but yes, everyone is responsible for their own actions and behaviors and retweets, but Kyrie knows full well that he has a bigger impact than some random person with 6 followers. Also, to describe his people as like an army, don't do that.
It's wild.
I've got an army behind me.
Yeah, I think Kyrie Irving is taking the approach to this situation that bikers in New York City like to take the approach of, which is, I'm a car when I want to be a car, and I'm a pedestrian when I want to be a pedestrian. He's very much taking the approach of,
phenomenal.
When I want to say that I'm important and I have an impact, I will. And when you guys are calling me out for sharing bad stuff and having a negative impact, I will say, I'm just a guy, treat me like a guy.
Right.
It's really disappointing, just on so many different levels. And the other thing that is really disappointing is that the league hasn't really stepped up. They've released a couple like lukewarm, we don't support his comments, statements, nothing like truly harsh and condemning. And I got to give credit to Charles Barkley and Shaquille O'Neal and the TNT guys. From like day one of this, they were saying that the league should have stepped in and either fined Kyrie or suspended Kyrie or done something, because there is instances in the past of players saying anti-Semitic stuff and being punished for it, or saying stuff that is just offensive in other ways and being punished for it. Earlier this season, Anthony Edwards posted something homophobic to his Instagram story, got fined. I think in the bubble season, Myers Leonard was streaming on Twitch and he used an anti-Semitic slur, and the Heat punished him. I don't know if the league punished him too, but he has not touched an NBA court since, and he never will. So it's weird when you see that the NBA kind of picks and chooses either the people or the things that they stand against. And I think it's very much a factor of the fact that Kyrie is good and popular, whereas Myers Leonard was not that good and not that popular, where they know that there would be blowback for taking action. And I think that's a factor, and it shouldn't be. Right.
And different situation, of course, but it's kind of like the Draymond situation of not getting any sort of official punishment from the league, where he punched out Jordan Poole and nothing happened other than a fine. Now, did you see, though, Adam Silver did come out with a statement in direct response to the apology from today.
I did see that, and that was good. That was definitely a step in the right direction.
Yeah, I can read the quote. Kyrie Irving made a reckless decision to post a link to a film containing deeply offensive anti-Semitic material. While we appreciate the fact that he agreed to work with the Brooklyn Nets and the Anti-Defamation League to combat anti-Semitism and other forms of discrimination, I am disappointed that he has not offered an unqualified apology and more specifically denounced the vile and harmful content contained in the film he chose to publicize. I will be meeting with Kyrie in person in the next week to discuss this situation. Okay? So that's good. Great. But in the meantime, he's just going to keep playing basketball games. Yeah. And I don't know how I feel about that. Actually, I do know how I feel about it. I don't like it.
I don't like it either. It's not good. And what's also disappointing is that no players have really spoken up about this, which is scary, because you wonder, do they not really care about this? Because if it was something else, would they have cared? Like if it was a player saying racist stuff about a different group of people, or if it was someone saying stuff about women, like would they say anything? So it makes you kind of wonder, do they care about this? Or it makes you go down the slippery slope of like, do people agree with him? Which is just even scarier.
Yeah, I hope it's not that. I think it might be more along the lines of how like cops don't out other cops, because it's this whole notion of like, oh, we're a brotherhood of NBA
Sure.
players and we're not going to throw someone under the bus. But like that gets dangerous when you don't call out dangerous behavior.
Right. And I think there's a difference between like the Robert Sarver thing and the Kyrie thing, just in that the players are definitely down to call out a billionaire owner. And just like you said, maybe not as much someone in their brotherhood. But if your brother is doing something really bad, you got to keep him in check.
Yeah.
You really,
100%.
really do. And there have been some past players stepping up, like Ray Allen had something, I don't know if he did it or if it was just reshared, of him learning. And I went to a Holocaust museum, I believe, and there was an article on the Players Tribune about it. So I think other folks are stepping up. I just haven't really seen much from current players. So we'll continue to see how this goes, but it seems like the NBA is now starting to move in the right direction. It was disappointing that they kind of just let it go on and get really ugly, where these Kyrie press conferences are just, I don't know, they're really disappointing, and they keep getting stopped early by the Nets PR team because they're getting so out of hand. It's just a mess.
All right. And with that, we have officially covered one of the Nets stories.
Oh, it's too real that is the truth there. So yes, sandwiched in between all of this is that they fired Steve Nash, their head coach. And it was strange in that it came after the Nets won a game. And it was strange in that it didn't seem like a lot of people were in the know about it. And it then got worse because very soon after firing Steve Nash, they started to look into who their next coach would be. And they are looking like they're going to hire Ime Udoka, who, yes, was suspended for a year for doing gross, inappropriate workplace stuff just like a month ago. So, it's one of those, they had so many bad things going on and they just decided, well, what if we made this worse?
Yeah, it's really bad. There's not a lot to say about it other than the fact that it's really disappointing. Steve Nash obviously did not have a successful tenure in Brooklyn. Who's to say how much that was impacted by Kyrie basically not playing all of last year? But it never really seemed like he clicked there. And the idea that they are already talking about hiring someone in Ime Udoka, who clearly did some pretty bad things in Boston, when the Nets of all teams are in need of some good PR, it's really mind-blowing. And unfortunately, I think that's a perfect, albeit sad, transition into the Josh Primo situation.
Right. Speaking of good PR, though, the Nets did post recently on LinkedIn that they are hiring a new director of PR, which does feel incredibly timely and intentional.
Yeah, well, whoever it is, I hope they're good.
Yeah, I hope they are, because it's just a mess. So yeah, that's all the Nets stuff so far. And we've also got the Josh Primo stuff, which is it's gross and bad on a whole different level. Josh Primo is a young player on the Spurs, only his second year in the league. And he very abruptly was waived by the Spurs. And when it was first reported, there wasn't really any sort of reporting about why they did it. And the reason that this is very surprising is that he was a very high pick in the draft, not this most recent one, but the one before. So I think he was like the number 12 pick, like you had mentioned before recording, Adam. So he's a very high pick.
Yeah.
It was very surprising. This is not something that happens. Waiving a player is when you basically agree to continue to pay their contract, but you just say, get off the team. We don't want you on the team anymore.
Right. And then if someone else picks them up, they're responsible for covering that remaining contract payment.
Yes. So when that happened, just because you don't do that with someone who is young and was a high draft pick and has a lot of upside, my initial thought was, what did Josh Primo do? And before the Spurs or the league could say anything, Josh Primo's team had sent some sort of statement to Adrian Wojnarowski of ESPN, who first reported about this, and it mentioned him wanting to address trauma and mental health. So at first, when this news came out, people thought, wow, that's actually really cool of the Spurs to do. He's going through some mental health stuff. They are taking it seriously, saying, you know what? We don't need you to be on the team officially anymore. Go sort it all out. So at first, when the story came out, people are like, that's really nice. Then someone on Reddit commented that they know someone who works at a hotel in Minnesota. And they said someone there mentioned him exposing himself to people and that being an unwanted situation, which I feel like it is 100% of the time. And that was a strange thing that turned out to be true. So here's the full truth now, at least what we know as of November 4th. This was, or at least my November 4th. Shams Charania tweeted, former Spurs psychologist Hillary Cawthon has sued the Spurs and Josh Primo and is filing a criminal complaint over alleged incidents involving indecent exposure by Primo, alleging Primo exposed himself 9 times to her beginning in December of 2021, and the franchise failed to act. So that's really bad. That's really bad in that it's happened for a long time. It's almost a year old. Clearly, you would think the Spurs tried to like make this go away and were unsuccessful. And instead of it being a good graces thing of, oh, this bad thing happened, let's get him off the team immediately. Now it very much reeks of, oh, she's suing him very soon. We have to get him off the team. And that is not a good look for the Spurs. December of 2021 is when she started to file the complaints.
Right. Ugh. Now, as expected, Shams Charania also shared a statement from Josh Primo's attorney, unequivocally denying these accusations and claims, saying, you know, this person is jeopardizing Josh Primo's future, yada, 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 yada. But essentially just saying this didn't happen.
Right. But also, we'll put a link to it. It's a weird statement. It's a weird thing where they right off the bat call out that Josh Primo is 19.
And that she's 40. Like, what does that have to do with it?
Nothing. Yeah. Immediately right away, the attorney says that he's being harmed by ugly stereotypes and racially charged fears for their own financial benefit. Like, it's such a weird thing.
Yeah. And also not to make light of the whole situation, but literally what it implies is that his genitals were visible like underneath or through his shorts, and he wasn't aware of it. And that's the reported incident that they're claiming. And they're like, well, why didn't she just say something if she could see his penis coming out of his shorts? Like, it's truly a bizarre statement. Like, literally in this statement from the attorney, it says, quote, "It is baffling why she did not bother to tell her patient that his private parts were visible underneath his shorts." End quote. What the hell is happening here?
It's so strange because I feel like this statement does more harm than good, because this statement makes it seem like, okay, he definitely did it. It would have been better if the official statement was just, we deny all of the allegations, and then you just don't say anything. Right. But this is one of those you doth protest too much thing, because how can you accidentally have, I mean, you can't have this accidentally happen 9 times. Like, it's just impossible. Right. And I'm not trying to discount that Josh Primo has had a hard upbringing. I don't know enough about Josh Primo's life to know if that's the case. But regardless, it seems like this was a bad situation where he did a bad thing, and the woman working for the team went to the Spurs and they didn't do anything. And after giving them plenty of time to do something, she took official legal action like she should. And I hope anyone that was involved in not shutting this down, and Josh Primo himself, if he is guilty of this, I hope they all come to justice, because this is gross and awful. And there's just too many bad things happening in the NBA right now. I'm glad that bad actors are getting called out. There was even something that we didn't even get to talk about where like a GM of one of the teams, maybe the Pistons, got fired for inappropriate work stuff in between the Udoka stuff and now this, which is like, good, glad these dudes are all getting called out. But also, can we just get all these people out of the league? Like Sarver, Udoka, that GM, Primo, Kyrie stuff. We're not even a month into the season, and there's so much drama, and it's not even the fun drama. We like the fun drama on Horse, not the gross drama. Right. There's been all the gross stuff. We got to get it out of here so we can talk about players arguing about jerseys or something. I don't know.
Yeah, it has been a lot. So just to end this full court press on a slightly lighter note, let's do a quick assessment of how wrong we already have been about drama and teams being good or bad. I mean, you and I were talking privately as we listened back to our last episode, where you you predicted like, hey, if the Jazz come out and start really hot, everyone's going to be like, oh, fuck, something like that. And the Jazz...
I think I even said something literally to the effect of, if the Jazz come out and win like 3 games in a row, it's going to be a problem. And that's exactly what they did.
The Jazz and the Spurs, who I think correctly predicted would be absolute but not the case so far. I believe as of this recording, the Jazz are 6-3. The Spurs are 5-3. The Spurs actually look like they could be like a legitimate sneaky good team. They've got a lot of young talent. Obviously, who knows what's happening with the Josh Primo situation. Doesn't seem like he's a part of that team anymore. But either way, yeah, the Jazz and the Spurs have been surprisingly good. The Lakers have been, I don't know if surprising is the right word, but the Lakers have been awful. They finally won their first game, but they have been abysmal. And there's plenty of drama in Los Angeles land.
Yes, lots of drama, more of the normal drama. But that drama might be going away because now Russell Westbrook, one of the main scapegoats of the drama, he has been coming off the bench in the past 3 games, and he's been doing really well. And the Lakers won 2 out of those 3 games. So for me, an unabashed Russell Westbrook fan, I just hope that this turns, even if it doesn't turn the Lakers season around, I hope it turns the Russell Westbrook narrative around.
Right.
Because I love me some Russ. And if you want an easy solution to who tweeted this, if someone tweeted, imagine not liking Russell Westbrook from the horse account, it's me. I love Russ quite a bit, and I'm happy to see him happy. And one of the people that I'm staying with here in Australia currently met Russell Westbrook and said he was very nice. And that made me very happy to hear that Russell Westbrook is a very nice guy. And I think on that happy note, we can conclude Full Court Press. Get it like the news.
Yes, let's mercifully end this Full Court Press.
Please, Adam, raise our spirits whether that actually happened.
That is exactly what I'm going to do. So for today's That Actually Happened, after a rather heavy Full Court Press that involved a lot of discussion of anti-Semitism, I thought it might be a nice palate cleanser to flip the script and talk about a man by the name of Ossie Schechtman. Now, you might be wondering who that is, and that's okay. But Ossie is credited with having scored the first basket in the BAA, the Basketball Association of America, which later became the NBA. Why am I talking about him today? I'm talking about him because Ossie was Jewish.
Yes, love this. Love this a lot. I feel like I've heard a little bit about the BAA, but not enough. So I'm excited to learn more about that and Ossie.
Yeah, let's get into it. So born in 1919 in Brooklyn, New York, the son of Russian Jewish immigrants, Ossie's story is just as incredible and improbable as you would hope it would be. According to a New York Times article about his life, Ossie learned to play basketball at settlement houses by shooting balls through the low rung of a tenement fire escape ladder.
I mean, look, we've all done things with creating basketball hoops out of things that are not hoops, and that's just ingenuity right there.
It's basically the basketball equivalent of the stories you hear about young Dominican baseball players using a milk carton as a glove and a bunch of rubber bands as a ball. I absolutely love it. Now, for reference, especially for non-New Yorkers, tenements were essentially very cheap apartment buildings, often with extremely high numbers of residents per unit and floor, sometimes with a shared bathroom or a common area like a dorm. In New York specifically, tenement buildings were very commonly inhabited by low-income immigrants on the Lower East Side of Manhattan. And if you ever visit New York City, I'm told that the Tenement Museum is absolutely spectacular.
Yes.
Mike, I don't know if you've been, but I've heard it's outstanding, and it is very much on my list of things where I'm like, I live in this city, how have I not done this thing yet?
Right. It's high on my list too. I have not gone, and I feel like I do this with touristy things in the various cities I've lived, where I usually don't go to the touristy things because inevitably a family member or a friend will visit and then want to do the thing, and then I will do the thing. But I should probably head to the Tenement Museum because I feel like that's not high on people's tourism lists, but I have heard great things about it.
Yeah, I feel like it's not, the Tenement Museum is not Madame Tussauds wax museum, you know what I mean?
If anyone volunteered that, I would say no, but it's not the Met, it's not the MoMA, it's not the big ones that people are like, I am here, let's go do this.
Right. In any event, despite his rather humble beginnings, Ossie had the opportunity to play high school basketball at Samuel J. Tilden High School in Brooklyn. He would go on to play college basketball at Long Island University, or LIU, and help them win the national championship in 1941. Sadly, there are no statistics available from his college days, but the good news is that Ossie's playing days continued after he graduated from school. In 1941, Ossie joined the Philadelphia SPHAS, SPHAS, of the American Basketball League, a team fittingly once sponsored by the South Philadelphia Hebrew Association. And I'm so glad I found that note because I had no idea what the hell a SPHA was. And it's also incredibly hard to say. I'm not sure if they were called the Philadelphia SPHAs or the Philadelphia SPHAs, but either way, truly awful name. Apparently, in my research, it's also an acronym for self-propelled heavy artillery featured in the Star Wars franchise. This, according to Wikipedia, an absolutely spectacular name for a Star Wars fan page. In any event, during Ossie's stint with Philly from 1941 to 1946, Ossie helped the team win the championship in the 1942-1943 season, and the following season, he was second in the league in scoring. And just to emphasize how much basketball has changed in the past 75 plus years, Mike, how much do you think Ossie averaged per game for him to be second in the league in scoring?
I'm going to say 12.3 points.
I'm afraid it was less than that. It was 10 and a half. 10.5 points was good for second in the league that year. Inflation is real, my dog. All right. But in 1946, like most reasonable people who have spent 5 years living in Philadelphia, Ossie decided to move to a real city called New York. Here he signed with... I'm expecting the hate from Philly people.
We have to, for the benefit of the world, we have to be nice to Philadelphia, at least for the next week or so that they potentially do very well in the World Series.
Oh, go Phillies, by all means. It's 2-2 right now as we record this. I hope by the time you listen to this on Monday, the Philadelphia Phillies are World Series champions.
Please,
Baseball reference.
Please. Yeah, shout out to the last episode where I said, hopefully the New York Yankees do well.
I'm sorry, buddy.
We did all right. We won the ALDS and then lost the ALCS. It's okay.
Yeah. Anyway, in 1946, Ossie moved to New York and signed with the New York Knicks. You may have heard of them.
I have.
And once again, shout out to our newest patron, Something Mean About the Knicks. But on November 1st, 1946, the Knicks squared off against the Toronto Huskies at Toronto's Maple Leaf Gardens. A quick note here to say that the Toronto Maple Leafs is amongst the most infuriating names in sports. Leaves. It's Leaves. And to our Canadian listeners, sorry, not sorry. Anyway, the Knicks won a tight game. The Knicks won a tight game 68-66, which I assume was a high-scoring affair back in those days. But the real story was that Ossie Shechtman, the son of Russian Jewish immigrants and a hometown kid from nearby Brooklyn, hit the first basket of the game. This shot is considered to be the first basket scored in NBA history and was the focus of a 2008 documentary called The First Basket, which highlighted the prominence of Jewish basketball players in the first half of the 20th century. In his one season in New York that was sadly cut short after a serious injury, Ossie averaged 8.1 points per game and had the highest win share for the Knicks, meaning that his impact when he was in the game was more valuable than anyone else on the team, statistically speaking. Also, Mike, just for fun, take a guess of the Knicks' payroll during that season.
Oh, let's see. So this is 1946. The total, like what all of the players made combined as a team?
Total payroll, yeah.
I'm going to guess $20,000.
You undershot it this time. It's $60K,
Okay.
$60,000 for the entire team. Ossie actually did quite well. Ossie was paid $9,000 of that, which is a pretty good percentage, and that included a $1,000 bonus for making the playoffs. Now, using a nifty inflation calculator, which is now more than ever, you know what I mean? We need these inflation calculators. $9,000 in 1946 is equivalent to approximately $122,000 in modern times. So a decent amount of money, but nothing near the kind of money that players make today.
That's not bad.
Oh, I would take it for sure, but like for a professional basketball player, pretty low. But actually, Ossie was not bitter about it. In an interview, he said, quote, "I have no jealousy or resentment over how much money these guys make today." So there you go. Not a salty old fella.
What a good approach.
Yeah. Ossie finished his playing career with the Patterson Crescents of the American Basketball Association, located in nearby Patterson, New Jersey, believe it or not.
Okay. All right. Crescents, is it like, are they named after the moon?
I guess so. I would have preferred Patterson Croissants, but they are in fact the Crescents. Though his playing days were behind him after 1948, his impact remained. In 1996, Ossie was among players from that inaugural NBA game who were honored when the Knicks played the Toronto Raptors at the Sky Dome for the 50th anniversary of that game. Side note, did you know that there had been basketball games played at the Sky Dome, now the Rogers Center, where the Blue Jays play baseball?
I did not know that because I'm not well versed in Canadian stadium lore, but pretty cool.
Ooh, Canadian Stadium feels like it rhymes, but it doesn't. It's like one of those Eminem rhymes where it sounds like a rhyme, but it's not really a rhyme. So I found some photos of this setup, and it's pretty wild. Evidently, the Raptors played there from 1995 to 1999 before moving into their current, more appropriately sized stadium. And we'll share some photos of this on the Horse page, but it looks kind of like the Radio City thing where it's like it just doesn't look right. Like you see this stadium in the middle of this enormous facility and with like bleachers that are put up for every game they play there is pretty odd.
Oh, wow. Yeah, it's always interesting when you set up a basketball court in a non-basketball thing because basketball courts are surprisingly quite small compared to other sports fields.
They are. Now, it can be cool like when they did the NBA All-Star game at the Dallas Cowboys Stadium and they actually had people in all of the seats and it was just a basketball game with 80,000 people watching. But it looks particularly weird when it's just like in the middle of a field and then all of the actual stands are empty, but then they put up like makeshift bleachers. It's kind of bizarre. But anyway, we'll share some photos. I found that interesting. But moving on, in 1998, Ossie was inducted into the National Jewish Sports Hall of Fame. In 2001, he was inducted into the Long Island University Hall of Fame and was also named to the New York City Basketball Hall of Fame. In 2008, the aforementioned documentary film The First Basket was released and was overwhelmingly well received. Reviews included the following from the Village Voice reviewer Ella Taylor. The First Basket is more than a triumphalist screw you to those who think Jews don't play sports. David Vjorst's clear-eyed, jaunty documentary briskly walks us through the history of American Jews in basketball. And Film Journal International reviewer Louis Beale said of the film, quote, an important historical document, engrossing and fun. Now, I couldn't find anywhere that the film is currently streaming. I'll try to see if I can find it, but either way, we will definitely post a link to footage of that first basket, which definitely does exist, which is really cool to watch. Now, the coolest part about all of this is that Ossie lived to see all of these accolades. When he passed away in 2013, he had lived to 94 years old.
Wow.
And he only had one regret, and I quote, I wish I could have known how to do a crossover dribble. That really looks like a lot of fun. End quote.
Oh, what a guy.
I could not love that quote anymore. It's amazing. Long live Ossie Shechtman. And that is the true story of how the son of Russian Jewish immigrants scored the first basket in NBA history. And in the midst of the Kanyes and Kyries of the world spewing anti-Semitic garbage, let it be known that that actually happened.
That is very cool and the perfect counteraction to the badness and sadness of current news. Thank you for that. That is wonderful.
You are most welcome. Let's move on from the badness and sadness.
Thank you, Clyde Frazier. I will be moving on now to my 3-on-3, which is also inspired by the Nets situation, but not in the Kyrie sense. It's more in the Steve Nash sense. So what's currently happening with the Nets is that they have an interim coach of Jacques Vaughn, and we'll see how long he is the interim coach before they bring in someone else. If they do bring in Ime Udoka, hopefully they don't. But what I decided to do was to look into the success of interim coaches, and I have done a 3-on-3 on the best and the worst interim coaches in NBA history, purely based on their performance. So I think let's start with the bad, and then we can get into the good, so we can end on the happier of notes.
1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 1, 3-on-3.
Let me just say this is a fabulous topic for a 3-on-3.
Thank you. So I want to give shout outs to Haley O'Shaughnessy of The Ringer, as well as Natalie Saar of Bleacher Report, and finally Jeff Marin of ESPN. Those three writers put articles that helped shape the research behind these. They had big lists of the best and the worsts, and I was able to make my 3-on-3 based on that. So let's start with the bad. The third worst interim coach by my standards, I am giving to Keith Smart of the 2011-2012 Sacramento Kings. Now, he took over for Paul Westphal, who we will discuss later in this episode. Paul Westphal started the year 2-5, and the Kings decided that's enough. 7 games in, they said, no, thank you, sir. And they brought in Keith Smart. When they brought him in, he didn't do super great. So Keith, over the course of the season, ended up going 20-39 with the Sacramento Kings, which is not a fantastic record. They ended up finishing 22-44. And it was more of just that the Kings had like a decent roster this year. They had DeMarcus Cousins, Tyreek Evans. They had some veterans. They had higher hopes, and he didn't perform quite well. It was just one of those, the reason the first coach got fired is because we think the team is better than this. And then the interim coach of Keith Smart didn't make things much better. So that was that.
Right.
Now let's move on to some more interesting ones. The number 2 worst interim coach I'm giving to Tyrone Corbin of the 2014-2015 Kings. Now, The Kings had a very interesting situation going on in 2014, 2015. So they started the year with Michael Malone as their coach. And Michael Malone was a coach that had done pretty well and was beloved by the players, especially DeMarcus Cousins, the star of the Sacramento Kings. And it was a very surprising time when they fired him. He started the year 11-13, which wasn't great, but also that was the season where DeMarcus Cousins had a weird, medical issue. I forget what it was. It was some sort of really bad stomach bug, I think. And he missed a bunch of games. They started off the season 5-1, and then they lost a couple of games when DeMarcus Cousins was out sick, and then they fired him. It was a really weird situation on many different levels. And then it only got weirder because then they had their interim coach of Tyrone Corbin. He took over as interim coach in December of 2014. And after 8 games of being the interim coach, the team officially said that he is not the interim coach anymore. He is just the coach. And that's something that isn't necessarily important in terms of logistics of the coach, but it is just a nice show of faith in a coach where sometimes they'll leave someone as the interim coach for the rest of the year with the understanding, hey, once the offseason hits, we're going to try to bring someone else in. But for the Kings to go out of their way to say, no, you are the official coach, usually would instill some sort of confidence in this coach. Unfortunately, though, they quickly moved on. 20 games later, they fired him, and then they brought in George Karl, who is a legendary coach and is someone that at that point in time wasn't employed by another team. So what it all felt like was the reason they fired Michael Malone is for some reason they wanted to get George Karl in the mix. But the whole situation of bringing in Tyrone Corbin was very strange in that if your whole point was to bring in this other coach, why uninterim him? It was just weird and messy. And that year for the Kings was very Kingsy, a team that is usually surrounded by drama.
Yeah. I mean, the best way I can describe it, and I don't remember hearing about that, it would be like if you were casually dating someone and then you were the one to be like, I think we should be boyfriend and girlfriend. And they were like, great. And then 2 weeks later, you're like, I am dumping you. It's like, why did you bring this up in the first place? What are you talking about?
Exactly. So all of the drama was not Tyrone's fault. And I feel bad for what happened to him. But at the end of the day, under his tenure, the Kings were 7 wins and 21 losses. And when you're getting 3 times as many losses as wins, you're just not going to be high on the list of good interim coaches. Now, let's get to the number 1, which is a famous person for a famous team, and it was famously bad. This is Earvin Magic Johnson on the 1993-1994 Los Angeles Lakers. There was a coach of the Lakers going into that season named Randy Pfund, P-F-U-N-D.
Sure.
What a fun last name. So Jerry Buss, the owner of the Lakers, fired him with just 18 games remaining in the season. They had an assistant coach coach 2 of the games, but then with 16 games left, Jerry Buss reached out to Magic Johnson, someone with 0 coaching experience, 0 assistant coaching experience. But Magic had been tossed around as someone that could be involved in the Lakers organization. He had recently retired, and there were reports that he had rejected some front office and coaching positions from some teams. But he's a Lakers legend, and the players know him, so this should work, right? No. And this is kind of similar to what went on with Steve Nash, which you'll see this happen with some coaches. When players are point guards and they're very good at kind of directing the floor when they are players, people think, oh, well, naturally, they'll be a good coach. This happened with Jason Kidd. He got a head coaching gig with the Nets right after retiring. Steve Nash, same kind of thing. But Steve Nash did have some coaching experience. He was at least an advisor on the Golden State Warriors. But you'll see this happen with point guards where they think floor general. Yeah, let's make him the official floor general. And it doesn't always work.
Right.
Now, when Magic Johnson was hired, Pat Riley, who was a coach for the Lakers, and it didn't necessarily end on the greatest of terms, he said, quote, "Now he'll find out what torture really is," which is a big, tell me how you really feel about the Lakers organization, Patrick.
Yikes.
So Magic didn't do particularly well. He ended up going 5-11. He quit as head coach just before the 11th game started. He did not tell his players before the game that he was quitting, but, quote, according to the New York Times, the tenor of Johnson's pregame comments appeared to indicate that he wouldn't return. The Lakers had to put together some sort of announcement in the second quarter of the game. And despite him quitting during this 11th game, he did coach the final 5 games. So he did end up earning that 5-11 record. And he coached all 16 of those games, even though he quit during the 11th. And I guess they were just like, dude, there's 5 games left. Can you just ride it out? And he did. And it was wild. And those were the worst interim coaches.
Very interesting.
Yeah, ridiculous. So let's end on some good notes. Let's see some of the better ones. So repeat character, the first of a few in this section, Pat Riley is my number 3 best. So he was actually the interim coach of the 1981-1982 Los Angeles Lakers. So Paul Westhead, who coached the pre-Showtime Lakers. And I'm realizing I thought that he was a repeat character, but it's just Paul Westhead and Paul Westfall. So just kidding. Different people.
But Pat Riley's kind of a repeat character. We've already talked about Pat Riley.
Pat Riley is a repeat, so that is okay. So Paul Westhead was a coach of the pre-Showtime Lakers. We'll talk about him soon because he was also an interim coach. He was fired 11 games into the season when, and this is not officially reported, but the word on the street is that Magic Johnson came into the front office and said, you either get rid of Paul Westhead or you trade me, because Westhead wanted to introduce a more restrictive type of offense that Magic Johnson, a very free-flowing player, didn't want to go along with. Magic Johnson in the 80s was the Lakers. He was the face of the franchise. He was a star. He was very, very good. So the Lakers said, all right, Paul, you got to get out of here. We got to keep Magic happy. So they got rid of him, and then Pat Riley took over. Now, Jerry Buss and Jerry West, they claimed that they had already were going to get rid of their head coach for similar reasons to why Magic Johnson said that he wanted to be traded. The concerns about the offense not necessarily working. It just wasn't fitting the team's talents. And I got to give a shout out to Jerry Buss being self-aware, because he says about this, because spoiler alert, the Lakers ended up winning the championship this year, which is very cool. Buss said, quote, the irony which makes what Magic did unfortunate is that I had already decided to fire Westhead, but I don't think anyone will ever totally believe that.
Yeah.
So it makes it hard of like, you're being very honest about it, but it is kind of tough to believe. I don't really know how I feel. So Riley was ready to make an offense that fit around Magic Johnson, and that was what ended up working quite well. They ended up winning 11 of their next 13 games right after Riley took over. He coached them to a 50-21 record during his tenure, and then they went 12-2 in the playoffs, which was a record and was very, very good. And Pat Riley was a very good fit. The reason I made it number 3, though, is that the Lakers were still good under Paul Westhead when they fired him. He started the year 7-4, so they weren't bad by any means, but Pat Riley just kind of kept the things going and they won the championship. Can't argue with that. Number 2 on the best is previously mentioned Paul Westhead. He took over as an interim coach just a couple years prior for the 1979-1980 Lakers. So 14 games into the regular season, Jack McKinney injured himself in a bicycle accident, and he was unable to coach the team. They were 10-4 at the time. So Paul Westhead, who was an assistant coach on the team, took over as interim head coach. And it seemed like McKinney, come that February, was going to be able to return, but Jerry Buss just wanted to stick with Westhead because the team was playing well, didn't want to rustle any feathers and mess with the team chemistry, since, you know, it was about the end of the season. February is pretty late in the year, and he gave Westhead the vote of confidence, and they ended up doing quite well, and they won the title.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I wouldn't have known about any of this, but I finally have been reading Blood in the Garden, the Chris Herring book, whom we interviewed earlier this year. It's a book about the 1990s Knicks, and they talk about kind of Pat Riley's history and where Pat Riley had come from. And yeah, it's pretty damn interesting.
Mm-hmm. It's a great read, great book by a great guy. Great episode of Horse 2. Look for the Chris Herring episode. So let's conclude with the number 1 interim head coach, and that goes to Lenny Wilkens of the Seattle Supersonics in the 1977-1978 season. So the head coach of the Sonics going into that year was Bob Hopkins, and he started the year 5-17, which is very bad. Even worse than the 3 times as many losses as wins as we had discussed earlier. So truly not doing well. So they fired Hopkins and brought in Wilkens. Now, Wilkens was the personnel director of the Sonics at the time, Don't know exactly what that title means, but he took over in late November, and then the 5-17 Sonics ended the year on a 42-18 winning record.
Wow.
They had that record to end the year, which was enough to get them into the playoffs at a record of 47-35. And he just completely revamped the team, made some trades, and they just turned into literally a different team. The players were so unhappy under the original coach. They became way happier under the new coach, and they just utilized the roster a whole lot better. They ended up continuing to play well into the playoffs. They defeated the Lakers, they defeated the Blazers, and they defeated the Denver Nuggets to make it to the NBA Finals. They took the Washington Bullets to Game 7, but they didn't win the title that year. They did win the title the next year under the same coach, because obviously Lenny Wilkens had proven that he was a good coach, so they kept him around. They won the next year. But just to take a team that was 5-17, like waiting 22 games, that is long enough to justify a firing of a coach for being disappointing.
Totally.
And then to go 42-18 and make it to Game 7 of the finals, huge. So Lenny Wilkens, clear winner of the best interim head coach of all time.
Love it. Great stuff. And looking forward to the extended 5-on-5 when we catch up with all those, which we will do. We promise. We love you all. Sorry.
We will do that. Thanks for listening to this episode of Horse. Horse is hosted by Adam Amawala and Mike Schubert. This episode was edited by Mike Schubert. The social media is by both of the Horse Boys. The website is by Kelly Beckman Schubert. The art is by Allison Wakeman, and the music is by Bettina Campomanes.
Thank you to our producer-level patrons, Polly Burge, Kendra Hadley, Salvatore Testa, Trust the Process, Siobhan Ellsbury, He Sells Seashells, Don't Go Chasing Taco Falls, Bang, Bang, Long-Suffering Timberwolves fan, Roast Beef Debris, Cade the Conqueror, Basketball's Life 2, Michaela Loves Allison, Denver Steam Nuggets, Anna Bordaly, Weird Questions, Steph Curry is good at basketball, and a not insignificant part of that is his unparalleled ability to shoot threes.
Steph Curry just made a three in an important point of the game, so to express my excitement and the crowd's excitement to enhance the viewing experience of the game, I will say, bang!
You know what? As concise as we have ever been. But let's not forget about Lobster Bisquet, Hi Trish, Ginger Spurs Boy, Nicole Arsenault, and now something mean about the Knicks. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Horse Hoops and on Twitter at Horse_Hoops because
Horse Hoops was the person at the Kings that decided to uninterim Tyrone Corbin for some reason.
It is pretty harsh. It is pretty harsh. And frankly, a good reason to get banned from Twitter. But you know what? Who wants to be on Twitter anyway? All right. Go to our website, horsehoops.com, for links to some of the fun stuff we talked about today, including the very first basket ever scored in the NBA and some really weird photos of basketball being played in the Sky Dome.
Yes, and if you want to support the show, you can do so at patreon.com/horsehoops. We will be very thankful to you for doing so, and you will get thank yous in the form of bonus content. Got bonus audio, bonus writing. You can get stickers and jerseys and a whole bunch of other good stuff. And you can also get a whole bunch of other good stuff in the merch department at horsehoops.com/merch. So check those out. But we will close this episode, as we always do, by putting our hands in the middle and saying something on the count of 3. How we feel. What do we feel?
Well, whatever it is, I feel like it needs to be something positive because there was a lot of heavy stuff in this episode. So what can we think of that would be like a nice thing?
Well, I think a combo of what you covered in your That Actually Happened and what I am currently doing by being in Australia. If we
an
kind of merge the
Aussie
two and say
Aussie. Oi, oi, oi. Oh my
Oi,
gosh.
oi,
I
oi,
love
on the
it.
count
I
of
love it
3.
so much. Okay, let's do it.
All right. 1, 2, 3. Aussie.
Oi, oi, oi.
I have no idea if that's offensive in Australia. Australians, reach out. I don't know what that's from or what it is when they say Aussie.
Yeah, it's not offensive, no.
When I was at the Super Diana Taurasi game, there was an Australian player on the Storm, and someone said Aussie to her, and I think they said it with an Australian accent, so maybe it's okay. I don't know. Australian listeners, reach out. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, let us know. We don't know anything.